Oh, I said this would happen. I said a year and a half ago this would happen. So I saw this story yesterday, and all I could think was, holy crap. Now, I didn't say it in a video, but people who know me, I've said this for a while, that it's going to come to this eventually. We're going to see full-blown segregation, and we've seen it in the past in other schools, and nobody talked about it, and I can prove it. I brought the receipts, because it happened when I went back to school, just taking some extra classes in my free time, develop more life skills, all that kind of stuff. And I got this email. And as we go through this article, I'm going to show you the email that did almost the exact same thing. Except it was in the name of Black Lives Matter. And yes, I'm going to rat out the name of the school in a second. Because every school that does this needs to be called out. Alright, so check it. University campus hosts whites-only cafe in the name of equality. Lovely. And here is one of the posts on the left here. The non-POC, people of color, cafe is a space for students that do not identify as persons of color to gather and discuss their experience as students on campus and as non-POC in the world. Hosted by the Center for Social Justice and Inclusion. Except for you, darky, get out. Now, have you ever seen those crazy posts where people are like, the white supremacists, they're everywhere. They're in the trees. Every time the left does something bad, and people go, well, the left are the real racists, and then they go, oh, white supremacists snuck in. Because think about it. If you went out in your Klan robes, and you start spewing nonsense about segregation, left, right, and center would chew you out and laugh you out of the building. If you were like, blacks and whites need to be separated, that's the natural way it should be, etc., etc., yeah, everyone's gonna laugh at you and get the hell out of here. Now watch this. Now do the exact same thing, but put on a Black Lives Matter shirt. And then just rephrase it a little bit. Now just say, well, I think black people need to have their own safe spaces away from white people. Because they've been subjugated to white people for too long. And it's emotionally exhausting for them, so they should have their own space away from them. And then the left goes, yay! And then you get these critical race theorist idiots who go, oh, that sounds like a great idea. So if you actually wanted segregation, what side would you hide in? Just something to think about. Because as we look in this article, this is exactly what they do. They advocate for segregation, but they just change some words around so it doesn't sound as bad. Okay, go on. Segregation is alive and well at the University of Michigan, Dearborn, where leftists have created a cafe for only white people. The non-POC cafe will be holding a space for students that do not identify as POC. It was unveiled this week, and students must RSVP to enter the cafe, where, presumably, they will get to hang out exclusively with people of their own race. And this is where a big issue with the critical race theory idiots. Where do I go? Can I go in there? I'm mixed, I'm part white. Can I go in there? Or because of how I look, I gotta go in the black one? It does not appear to be that the intention of this segregated cafe is a lesson in what it would be like before the abolishment of laws that enforced segregation. Feel free to drop in and discuss your experiences as non-persons of color and hopefully brainstorm solutions to common issues with the non-POC community. See how they rephrase it? They don't say, just meet up with only whites and talk about problems in the white community with only other white people. It sounds worse when you say it like that because we've been socially conditioned by these people. Not only are white people who don't identify themselves by a melanin-infused skin tone, what is this language? Meant to talk about how they feel about being white people, about not being of color, their conversation will be facilitated. And I'm gonna show you in a second my school, because it was definitely facilitated, but it depended on which race group you went to. And I'm gonna tell you about the very different atmosphere there was. The cafe will be facilitated by a non-PLC faculty staff member to ensure that the discussions are kept safe and respectful. Look, this sounds so creepy. To recap, the white people who gather to talk about their whiteness will be observed by a white person to make sure that their discussions on whiteness are of the appropriate kind. The cafe will be recurring bi-monthly, generally to occur on the first Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m., and the third Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. Dates and times are subject to change depending on the feedback and demand. I'm sure there is a demand for this. Just in case these non-white persons who identify as persons of color... Okay, I hate this language. They did this to me at my own school. They did this where it was like, welcome black students or black identifying students. What the fuck does that mean? That was one of the questions I forgot to ask. I don't even know what that means. Okay, the segregationist model of the University of Michigan has created a cafe that is only for students of color as well. It is unclear as to which cafe will have the better water fountains. Okay, it says right here, other universities have taken up the same line, and I am going to prove it. So check out this email I got. So this is Santa Monica City College, and this is an email I got a while back. And this was sent to me by the Student Equity Center, which is run by a white person because I got to meet them, just so you know. Message sent on behalf of the Student Equity Center at SMC. Dear students, want to learn of more ways to support Black Lives Matter at SMC? Please join fellow SMC students for a series of sessions about how we can best support our African American students. The session will be hosted by author and educator Dr. Donald Grant, an expert on anti-Black racism in America. We will hope you will join us for this important discussion. So I decided to go. I wanted to check it out, and I did talk to the good doctor. He was a really cool dude, actually. I'm not going to shit talk him. We had a good conversation. Now, I had recorded the whole conversation, but unfortunately, I lost the files and can't find it. If I find it, I will upload it later. But for now, I will tell you how it went. So I'm going to go down and show you this part. These are the parts I went to. I went to the Wednesday one that was intended for all students. That was called Reckoning with the Pain and Legacy of Racism, What Santa Monica College Can Do. And essentially, he gave a lecture on everything was the white man's fault. And this was my major critique I had of him. He was pushing white fragility on us to read that. But here's the funny irony of the thing. So in this one, when it came time for questions, I started asking the good doctor some hard questions. Now, the moderator was a white lady, and while everyone was asking questions, most questions were basically like, well, what can I do to stop racism? I come in and I start throwing hardballs at him because I want some real answers. Every time in the middle of my questions, the white lady who's the moderator kept muting me, kept trying to mute me, so I couldn't finish my question or I couldn't respond to his answer. Now, interestingly, I went to the one intended for black students, and it was a different moderator who was a pro-Black Lives Matter person. It was a black lady. I asked even harder questions in that one. She never muted me once. She allowed us to have a hard conversation. So I found it funny that the Student Equity Center, run by a white person, was trying to silence black voices if they didn't say the thing she wanted to hear. Ain't that funny? The next one I went to was the Wednesday one intended for black students, calling Discuss Your Lived Experience for Students of African Ancestry. But before I go to this, look further down. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend these because I was busy. We have two on Thursday, intended for white students, and intended for Latino students. I'm not saying that because that's not how you say that word. And look, we have one intended for Asian and Pacific Islander students. And look at all the ones that are not for black people. All of them are just being told, working towards being an anti-racist. And then the final one that was intended for all students is how to support the Black Lives Matter movement by talking with your family and friends about racism towards our black community. So the conversations I went to were mostly level. I only got irritated at a couple parts. One was asking for the definition of racism, which he kept giving me the power and privilege one, and when I said, no, it's not, it got heated, and I'm saying, I have it open, I'll screen share right now, and he wouldn't let me. We don't have time for that. That was one issue. He also gave some complete factual inaccurate bullshit that I wasn't able to ask because it was in the all students one, and I had that white lady who was always holding me up, not letting me get to questions. I got him to admit the Black Hebrew Israelites are not racists. I don't know how he can see that, which is I had to ask 4 times before I got him to admit it, because he kept talking around it. I had to keep cutting him off and go, are they racist? Are they racist? Yes, but are they racist? Until he finally said, no, they're not. So I'm saying, okay, the group that goes around saying exterminate the whites and the Jews, apparently not racist. And then this is what solidified in our conversation that he just wanted to blame white people for everything that happened to black people. So he says power and privilege is the definition of racism. So I said, okay, we'll play your game. So I asked, how about in areas like South Africa, Northern Africa, all these parts of Africa? It's dominated by black people. It's run by black people. The society is majority black. In Africa, then, the blacks would have the power and they would have the privilege. And I said, so are Africans in Africa racist? And I just got nonsense back. I just got, well, you see, colonization by the British a long time ago, and I just am like, okay, dude, for real, come on, dude. And I couldn't get him to admit it. I even pointed out the farmer killings in Africa. Nothing. I could not get... So that's why I said, okay, we get it. Everything's Whitey's fault and black people are incompetent and can't do anything. I got it. That's what I'm getting from this. Alright, so we'll continue with the article. And like I said, if I find the original recordings of us talking, I will be sure to post it in another video. Okay, so both Boston University's Howard Thurman Center for Common Ground also aims at creating equality by segregating students by race. This strict exclusion is done to be inclusive. Upcoming at the HTC is a Black Community Reception, which will be the 20th annual event of its kind. Additional exclusive inclusive events were held for LGBTQWXYZ123 Batman symbol and Latino students. I'm not saying that. They're dumb made up words. Alright, BU also has a People of Color Playground, which touts itself as a space for students to ask and be asked difficult questions about who they are and how they fit into the world. As long as they don't break the narrative. In my experience, that's how it goes. Remember, don't be like me or my friends who are like, we're not victims of any white man or system, because then you'll get called racial slurs. Alright, continuing. Segregationist spaces are being created under the mission of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have been perpetrated by those espousing leftist ideology. Okay, and I love this. Look at this non-apology. Look at this. The Post-Millennial has reached out to the Center for Social Justice and Inclusion at the University of Michigan for comment. And they said that UM Dearborn regrets using the term cafe to describe the events, and that the descriptions themselves were not clear and not reflective of the university's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I love that non-apology. Well, we're not sorry about doing it, we're just kind of sorry about the words we used. They said that the university is committed to fostering and maintaining inclusive campus environment and encourage ongoing dialogue amongst our students, faculty, and staff on challenging issues. They continue the non-apology. We're sorry about the words we used, but we're definitely going to do it some more. The original intent, they said, was to provide students from marginalized community a space that allowed them to exist freely without having to normalize their lives and experiences, while also providing students that do not identify as persons of color the opportunity to deepen their understanding of race and racism without harming or relying on students of color to educate them. I hate this. You know why conservatives are better at getting people to join their side than the left? Because when someone comes up to a conservative and goes, why do you think this? Why do you believe this? Why do you think this should be this way? They'll go, well, let me tell you something. And then say 20 minutes later, another person walks up and asks them the same question, and they continue, well, let me tell you something. Now the left, they'll be like, so why do you believe we need to fight for safe spaces for black students? And they'll go fucking educate yourself, whitey. I don't have to talk to you. How does that win people on your side? You're just gonna be like, alright, well fuck you too then, buddy, and walk off. They'll go, bow down, read white fragility, and do what we say, or else we will smear and attack you. Anyway, they said that the events were never intended to be exclusive or exclusionary of individuals of a certain race. That's literally what it is by definition! Nobody is this stupid. They did this on purpose. They're lying. Both events were open to all members of the UM Dearborn campus community. Bullshit. The university has since taken down the page despite their earlier declaration that these cafes would be on a bi-monthly basis. This is gonna come back. I showed you, it's been happening. It's already been to my school. I've heard stories of it at other schools that don't make the news. And if you want to prove it to other people, just show them my email. I have the date on it. I've been to the events. They're just echo chambers. I was literally the only one there asking hard questions. Everybody else just nodded and said, oh yeah, oh, really? Like I said, if I find the recordings of me and the doctor having a back and forth, I will post it. I'm still looking for it. I'm really hoping I didn't delete it on accident. And for an upcoming video, I'm going to show everybody a segregated critical race theory class from 2007 that I had to go to. This has been going on much longer than you think. They gave me a book, so I'm going to show the book to prove it happened. But I gotta find it. I know I have it somewhere.